Hi, I'm Michael Claridge.
And I'm Brian Nettles. Welcome to the Book of Mormon Heartland podcast.
Our aim is to validate the historicity of the Book of Mormon through language, artifact, historical, and scriptural research.
We believe the Lamanites are the Native American Indians living in North America, and it is our desire to let the voices of their ancestors come out from the dust.
Welcome to our podcast. Hi, Brian. How you doing today?
Good. How are you doing, Michael?
Great. So what are we talking about today?
So we've got this book called The Mystic Symbol. If you're serious at all about the Michigan artifacts, you have to read this book by Henrietta Mertz. It really sets the stage for legitimacy of the artifacts, or at least the legitimacy of the story of the artifacts. It doesn't mean that they're all authentic. For later, we're going to cover the report by Richard Stamps.
So, Brian, this is a Book of Mormon podcast. Why do you want to talk about the Michigan artifacts?
That's very simple, Michael. These artifacts depict biblical scenes, potentially Book of Mormon scenes, knowledge of Jesus Christ, the Order of Nehor, and it has symbols which include actual Egyptian, making it potentially the language used in the gold plates. That's why.
Oh, that makes sense.
So let's get back to 1890.
Because of it all started back in 1890. What's important about the fall of 1890?
Well, 1890 was when James Scotford made his first finding. He was digging post holes. He found some artifacts while digging those post holes, and then he ran into town proclaiming that he had found something really wonderful. So a lot of times when you get reports from other people, the naysayers of the artifacts, they will actually pinpoint the fall of 1890 as being the first artifact found, when in reality, Henrietta Mertz points out quite conclusively in her book that there were many artifacts from Michigan with these same strange symbols on it already discovered, already existing in the local economy.
So she mentions two different collections.
Yes.
Talk about that one.
So it's reported in the book, and this is on page 7 of the Mystic Symbol, that in 1874 a farmer found this shuttle. And here's a picture of you can see a picture of the shuttle. Now, what's a shuttle, Mike?
I have no idea. It goes to space, I guess.
Sure. I look at it and it looks like something that you're going to wind rope on or wind twine on. I'm not really sure what a shuttle is, but they're calling this a shuttle. And it's got these strange writings. It's got the Yohewa symbol on it, and it's got 4 other symbols on it, which I'm not going to go into right now. But the claim here, according to Henrietta Mertz, is that this was found in 1874. A few months later, they found more artifacts in the villages of Crystal and St. Louis and Edmore. They found a copper stiletto, a small clay box, and a large slate tablet, each bearing these undecipherable markings together with some strange-looking cryptic characters. Yeah, so that's the first collection. Are these ones from Crystal, Michigan, and other areas, St. Louis and Edmore. Okay.
In 1874.
In 1874.
The second group was Edwin Worth, which they began finding that collection in 1848.
Yeah, he began collecting artifacts in 1848. We're not sure which artifacts he found in 1848, but it was reported by Henrietta Mertz that between the 1860s and the 1880s, he was gathering up collections gathered by other people. And so he turned it into a museum. And his museum was actually very successful. He first established it in Detroit. He moved it to New York. He was there for 40 years. And then in 1906, he moved to Illinois. He built a building specifically for his museum. And in 1916, it burnt down. And another interesting fact about it is it said that on any given Sunday, he would have as many as 600 people coming into his museum and looking at the artifacts.
Wow. And so there is evidence that with both this shuttle in the spring of 1874 and Edwin Worth in 1848, that they existed before 1890.
Yes. There are definitely at least two collections here, and then there's a third one, and that's the Franklin collection. So what's reported by Henrietta Mertz is that Professor Kinnerman knew about this Franklin collection, and in 1874 he visited Mr. Franklin, saw the collection. Now this was not a small collection. He actually had built an entire building to house his collection. And Mr. Kinnerman visited Mr. Franklin on several occasions. He visited him first in 1874. He visited him again later in 1891, and then again in 1901. And it included things such as a Noah's tablet that was a pretty good sized tablet, 22 inches by about 7 inches. There were axes, spears, knives, burners, caskets, pipes, figurines, lots of stuff in his building. And so he was a major collector. So there you've got like 3 separate collections that existed all prior to the Scotford finding in 1890.
Now, Henrietta Mertz also had another test that she did, which is called the signature analysis. Can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, so Henrietta Mertz, she was a cryptographer in World War II, and later she actually became a known analyzer of signature analyses in courtrooms. And so if anybody wanted something of handwriting analyzed, they would go to Henrietta Mertz, and she could tell you more information about the person and more information about how to figure out who it was. And here I've written about this in this blog post here, where she talks about the letter X and the Lindbergh ransom notes, about how the letter X was helped to determine who was the creator of the Lindbergh ransom notes. So she looked at these artifacts with the intention of determining if they were created by one person or if they were created by numerous people. She says, where any written document is put in question and one man stands accused of forgery, professional analysts instantly spot one outstanding characteristic appearing on the questioned specimen, as for example, the foreign letter X on the Lindbergh ransom notes. A like analysis of inscriptions on the Michigan artifacts indicated that these writings stemmed from many hands. No single outstanding characteristic of one individual hand stood out. If each tablet had been written by a different hand, as appears on these specimens, forgery by one person is obviously untenable. She continues with the statement basically saying that all these people that want to call the artifacts fraudulent because they just look like they're fraudulent, they're really just stating an opinion. They're not really doing the important analysis that is needed to be done to determine if they were made by one person, made by 3 people, or made by numerous people. And her conclusion is that these things were made by numerous people.
Therefore, they couldn't be forgeries of this James Scotford.
Yes, it couldn't be that James Scotford went into his garage and made all of these artifacts. It just could not be done that way. The signature analysis proves it's more than one person. So, in conclusion, from the Mystic Symbol book, many artifacts were discovered before the 1890s, many years before James Scotford made his first finding in the fall of 1890, and the artifacts contain numerous handwriting signatures. Therefore, they could not have been made by one person or even one small team of fraudsters. So that's the Mertz report, and this gives credibility to the artifacts as being legitimate, at least many of them being legitimate. It is not possible that all of these things were created by one person. Therefore, that must be taken into consideration if you want to decide whether or not to call them all fraudulent, or if you want to actually take this as a serious study to consider these as legitimate artifacts that are ancient.
And Brian, your standing is that...
Well, my standing is that there is legitimacy in this collection, and there are fraudulent artifacts in this collection. That's where I stand. Now, while we have not yet established whether or not there is a clear connection between the Michigan artifacts and the Book of Mormon, one thing we do know for certain is that these artifacts have clear evidence that some of these people believed in Jesus Christ.
Well, when you look at my house, Brian, you see evidence that I live here, and you also see evidence that I believe in Jesus Christ. Well, likewise, when we look at these artifacts, we see evidence that these people believed in Jesus Christ.
We are seeking to definitively know if these artifacts do or do not represent the people of the Book of Mormon. This concludes our Book of Mormon podcast. Our intent is to do a real deep dive into this research. This will require great resources so that we can provide forensic research, photography, 3D scanning, visits to multiple locations of related Book of Mormon lands, and the resources needed for quality publishing. Your donations are the only way we can make this happen. Michael, tell us about our membership plan.
Well, for only $25 a month, you can become a gold plate member of Book of Mormon Heartland.
A non-profit organization. What does that include, Mike?
Well, it includes a monthly Zoom call where we talk about everything that we're doing.
When is that Zoom call?
Every second Thursday of every month.
Is that all?
Nope, we will be making replicas of the artifacts. When they become available, we'll send you one.
How do you join?
It's real simple, Brian. All you got to do is go to bookofmormonheartland.com and find the Donate tab.